All right, welcome back into the College Football Corner. Randy and Fletch at your service. Post Army Navy game just ended. What a wild ending that was. Always good to watch that because good spirit of patriotism back in. And what better day to watch that on than Snowmageddon if you're here anywhere in the Midwest where we're located. We're under, I guess, maybe somewhere between 4 and 5 inches of snow. Maybe right now. It looks like it's going to die off, so I don't know if we're going to get what they predicted like they did in other places. But we're here to talk football. We got a lot to unravel today's game as well as what's going on in the last week, including the bracket. So, Randy, where do you want to start?
Well, I think that I'm not real happy with the bracket. I think that they kind of butchered this whole thing. They had Notre Dame in front of Miami for the last 3 weeks or whatever, and then at the last second they reversed them. Well, they should have reversed them from the beginning if they were keeping head to head. So both teams are sitting on their couch watching the game, and the committee decides they're going to flip them. Which, like I said, I mean, I didn't have a problem being on there. I just had the problem with the fact that the way they did it. I mean, Notre Dame, their body of work is better, but neither one of them play. Then all of a sudden, head to head mattered, and so that was not. I didn't really care for that. I didn't think that. I thought Notre Dame should have been in the playoffs. I truly believe that they were one of the probably. I think they're probably one of the top five teams in the country right now today. Not going back to game one or game two, but right now today, I really think they are. I think Alabama should have been out. I know they don't hold that game against them, but when you go to that game and get that kind of result, I mean, it's got to tell you that there's one or two teams that probably deserve to be in that. I don't like the fact that the way they have the conference championship automatic bids you got teams that got in there, Tulane and James Madison. I just don't agree with them.
Yeah, I'm with you because ultimately what they've always told us is that their duty or what they are supposed to do is get the best teams in. We're looking for the best teams. That's why they have the eye test and metrics and all that. Well, right off the bat, you can't say this is the 12 best teams because you got automatic qualifiers from conference champions that have, that don't have the resume. Yes, James Madison lost one game, but they have played 80 power four schools.
Right.
So it's just it is what it is. So so that being said, I certainly agree that the whole Miami Notre Dame thing, the way that was headed, was looking like they were going to leave Miami out, and I didn't necessarily agree with that either. But what made it worse was they flip flopped them after BYU lost, and they leave BYU out with only two losses. Yeah, both of them were bad losses to Texas Tech, but Texas Tech number 15, 5 team in the nation. So it's a lot of inconsistencies, and I think it comes down to we think this team is better. We think this team is better. Well, isn't that what the polls were all along in the AP? We think this team is better. Voting, it never really settled on the field, and so what's the ultimate is. This will never happen. But going this way, two teams could play on the field for the national championship. One team can win by a field goal, and they go, well, we still think the other team's a better team, so we're going to crown them national champions. Who cares what you think? It's got to be on the field. That's why we have play the games. Doesn't matter what people think. It matters what you do on the field. A lot of people didn't think Oregon was going to lose to Indiana. They did. A lot of people didn't think a lot of things. That's why we have the games. So yeah, I got a big problem with Notre Dame not being in because I think they are one of the best teams. They're definitely one of the top 12 teams in the nation. There's no doubt. I certainly agree they could be a top 5 team. They're definitely top 10 team. And they've proved that the way they've played and who they've played and how they've played. They lost 2 games by very minimal points to 2 really good teams. And they played other good teams really well and dominated a lot of teams. Everybody thought they were going to lose to Pitt, including me. They dominated Pitt. So they handled that horribly, and I think it's going to push us into more expansion too early, probably. Getting to 16, Probably not next year, but maybe they pushed it back a whole month just to be able to make that decision after the playoffs. So who knows what it's going to be like? But it was ugly and it was sloppy and it didn't make any sense whatsoever how they jumbled all that together. I certainly thought Alabama was backing in. If there's anybody who backed their way out of the playoffs, it would have been them. The way they played down the stretch. And I'm not picking on Alabama. I'm just looking at what you see on the field. Ty Simpson's not the quarterback he was earlier, and they can't run the football. And so I don't know if they're gonna beat Oklahoma. They got to go into Norman and do it the second time. And I know they say a lot of things about who wants to see that game again. I don't care about that. If it's two good teams they play again, so what? I mean, that's the two teams playing each other a second time in the playoffs doesn't mean nothing to me. It's fine. If I hope Ohio State gets Indiana again, because if they do, that means it's the national championship again because they're 1-2. I don't know if we'll get there. We'll see what happens, but yeah, it was just sloppy and ugly, and not a good look at all. And there's just they should have kind of like the ACC and replays. Have the whole thing televised while they're in that room picking those teams. Let's see who's picking these teams. See how it's really going down. But they'll never do that. So
yeah, and then you have then of course Notre Dame then said that they're going to set out the bowl game, and like 8, 9, 10 teams followed suit on that, and people are in a big uproar over that. Oh, how could you? This was such a prestigious moment. Now, mind you, these are the same exact people that have been complaining the whole time that there's a useless bowl game, attendance is way down, the star players are sitting out.
Yep.
I mean, I think fans are fickle. I mean, people in general, they just, I truly believe they just need something to complain about all the time. I don't have a problem with them setting out a bowl game. Like you said, you see some of those games, you get some good games, but you also get some very watered down games.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that big.
They were going to go play BYU. Well, that'd be a great game. Okay, so why don't they just schedule it next year then? Why do they need to make it not mean anything? I saw a big thing, a podcast between it was Joey Galloway and Kirk Herbstreit do a podcast together. They had a big segment on, and Joey Galloway spelled it out, and I think he was dead on right. There's a contingency of people that are holding on to these bowl games, which just really don't mean anything. The lower levels, the FCS, they don't have bowl games. They play a playoff bracket. They have for years. Right. We can't let go of these bowl games. And as bad as they are now, they weren't that bad 5 years ago. It's worse, but it's been getting worse for a while. People have opted out for over a decade now, but it's just gone real bad now to where the only bowl games that mean anything are the ones that are in a CFP. And we don't even need those games to be called anything for, it's the Cotton Bowl. Who cares, man? It's the CFP, that's so they need to just switch all that out, make it all about the playoffs and get rid of the bowl game names and all that. What are the 50 bowl games? It's too many bowl games. And that's where people opt out. Nobody's going to opt out of the CFP. Just about everybody who's worth anything that doesn't want to get hurt before they go to the NFL is going to opt out of a bowl game that's meaningless. And I don't blame them. I mean, it's just the way it is. It wasn't that way 20 years ago because it wasn't that lopsided with the money. Now the money is so great. One guy gets hurt and blows out his knee and ruins his career and never got to play. Now the next guy's not going to do that. So, yeah.
That's pretty wild how that all works. I don't know. They, now that we have the bracket, regardless of how people agree or disagree, now we have the bracket. I think when you look at the bracket, I think that Indiana Ohio State game played pretty big because I think that the top part of that bracket has an easier path to the championship than the lower bracket. I mean, the lower bracket, you got to go through. There you have it. I mean, you definitely got to go through. Not so much. Possibly, Miami, Texas A&M, one of those. Then I'm pretty sure it's going to be Georgia.
Yeah, right here, nobody believes Oregon's going to win. Not going to win. It's going to lose that game. So, I'm pretty sure you and I are in agreement. Oklahoma's probably going to win this game.
Yeah.
it'd be a miracle if Alabama comes up and all of a sudden finds themselves. I hope they do, but it ain't looked that way lately.
Well, you got to remember the last game Alabama dominated everything but the scoreboard.
Right.
I don't know if they can go to Norman and do that.
Yeah.
They still got so many issues running game. I think they have a quarterback issue right now
Right.
to go along with everything else. But
Ole Miss and Tulane. It's hard to beat a team twice and 2 times in the same year. Not in this case. It's going to be. And then this game probably the best game of the opening round, if you will, just because A&M lost against Texas. They're going to be out for blood. Miami didn't think they were getting into the last minute, so the winner of that gets Ohio State. So I'm thinking the home teams are going to take all these games. The ones that are hosting. They'll all win, and that's what happened last year. And I don't see that changing.
yeah, I just think that bracket is a little bit tougher to get to that final game.
You're right here with
With
Georgia.
Right.
Yeah, because Georgia and Ohio State, if they win out, they got to play each other right here,
Right.
and that could be a second time they've played one game too early. Depending, even though Indiana's got a lot to say about that too, being a very good team. So, but yeah, Indiana, Georgia, and Ohio State are all very good teams. I don't know about Texas Tech. I don't want to say they're not, but I want to see some stuff in this tournament. It's going to tell us a lot if Texas Tech is for real, or if they are Big 12 for real. No offense to them, but and I'm leaning towards they're for real, but I just want to see it, before I declare it. And the first game's probably going to be against Oregon, and that'll be an interesting game. Oregon has been there, and but they're not quite the team they were last year, but they're still a really good team. So that'd be a good game for Texas Tech.
Yeah, I have questions about Texas Tech. I mean, I agree with everything that you said about that. I got some questions there. We'll find out about that. The other one is Miami. And we've talked about it before. When we've talked about games that Miami had, when we talked about them on the show and stuff. And the thing is, we don't know who's going to show up for Miami, and it basically comes around Carson Beck.
Yep.
I mean, he can play well, really well. He can also throw 4 interceptions and play horrible. So, with Miami, it's almost, well, what are we going to get? Who's going to show up? And that's the biggest segment with Miami. I think Miami's a very good team, but, when your leader, your quarterback can be very inconsistent, that throws up a couple of question marks.
Yep. And it's interesting because different personnel, especially a quarterback, but they were kind of like that last year. In Miami, you never knew if they're going to blow somebody out or cough up a game they shouldn't win or have a bunch of turnovers. Them losing they either lost to Cal or should have lost to Cal. I remember last year there was like 3 games they should have lost. They didn't, but then they ended up not getting in. So it's very interesting what Miami's going to bring to the table. They got to go to Kyle Field. Now, that's at noon, I believe. So that's going to be an interesting kick. I would imagine Texas A&M would love to have that be a night game, but it's not. It's a noon kick. So, interesting.
Yeah. So all that. So, of course, we're going to find out that on next weekend. Then, of course, we had a lot of big news, during the week, especially, going back to Michigan and Jerome Moore. And that thing. And it really is sad. It's sad.
It is.
It's sad for those families. It's just, I feel bad for the guy. I really do. I mean, he made a bad decision, and
right.
He's going to pay for it. But it throws shockwaves through college football because now he's out at Michigan. He's in real trouble because of the things he did after the fact.
Oh yeah.
So that'll take care of itself, I assume. But now Michigan's looking for a coach, and you're hearing all these things coming out. I've read a thing. I've actually seen it a couple of times now about Michigan making a pitch for Kalen DeBoer from Alabama.
Right.
An outrageous amount of money, like $125 million. These things. We thought Lane Kiffin was outrageous. Well, we may see even more outrageous. And I was I'm looking at that, and I know there's other people in the mix too that they're talking about. But I'm thinking about it as an Alabama guy. I'm thinking, And you might, if they wait a week and you lose to Oklahoma, Alabama might gift wrap you and just send you right over to Michigan. So it'll be interesting how that plays out from a coaching standpoint for Michigan. Who lands there, what happens. Um, you want to see for the Big Ten. I know that Indiana really came on strong. Oregon's they've been pretty solid lately, here the last few years, and the fall of Penn State and stuff. But you'd like to see Michigan, um, you know, maintain a spot at the top of that thing to make things even more interesting.
Yeah, 2 years ago, that school was won them all and hung a banner. And, man, who would have thought? Apologize to everybody. I'm coughing like crazy. But, no, I'm a Ohio State fan. Yes, I love the rivalry, but I respect the rivalry. So I don't root against people. I don't root for people to get hurt, go to jail, stuff like that. I don't hate people. I just don't want Michigan to ever win another football game. It's pretty simple. That's all it is. We'll lose them all, and lose the dignity. But all that set aside, it's when it first like, hey, they fired Sherrone Moore. Well, it's not knowing why, you're like, whoa, what's going on? And then, 2 hours later, he's arrested. What? And then the whole unraveling was just nutty. And then you got to sift through all the lies and the memes and the AI. He's just trying to get to some real truth, And I ain't looking to find out this guy's whole hidden story of whatever might be going on. And I kind of hate that part of the public life. People think they got a right to know what all these people are doing. I don't know if that's. I know it's whatever. It is what it is, but I don't like it. But him and his wife have 3 daughters. The first one was born in 2019. They're all young. I hate that part of it. That's her dad. Like it or leave it or love it or hate it. Your parents are your parents, and sometimes you don't get good ones. And I'm not saying they don't have a good one. I'm just saying that's their dad. So from this day on, that's going to be part of their dad's memory with them. So I'm hoping more than anything that all that can be repaired. I hope the guy can find Jesus, find God, and get things together. And, maybe they can save that marriage. I'm not saying they're not going to. Who knows? But a lot of ugly on there, and you hate to see that go down. And as a Ohio State fan, it doesn't make me happy at all for that to be happening. So, but so yeah, it's. But every time there's an opening, which of course this is the newest opening, Kalen DeBoer's name comes out for every job, and I'm like, how is that possible? And I don't think it's him. I think maybe it's his agent, because agents are as worthless as anything. I bet if a Wayne High School was looking for a coach, Kalen DeBoer's name would be on that list. His name's on every list.
Well, maybe DeBoer's turned into Lane Kiffin now. The Lane Kiffin signed a big deal with LSU. So maybe he's the Lane Kiffin. That name comes up every time a job comes open.
If he takes Michigan, let's say he does, then you start thinking, okay, this guy could be the next Lane Kiffin-ish, different personality, but he wasn't in Washington very long. Then it would be only 2 years that he's in Alabama, and who leaves Alabama unless you just can't. You don't like it because you can't cut the mustard because you're following Saban. And I can see why you wouldn't want to follow Saban because of who he was and what he did. But you go to Michigan, it's if you don't put up, you'll be out of there in no time too, just like LSU and some other ones. So I think Michigan should get a great coach that's at a lower level like a Signetti, somebody that's been around and coaching for a while. Don't visit Sherrone Moore. He was only 37 when he got the full-time job a couple of years ago. He's 39 now. I'm not saying it had anything to do with it. I'm just saying with maturity comes integrity and comes experience and all kinds of things as you get up the ranks. So that's what I'd like to see them get, somebody that's down low, just dying to come up and just put culture back into that place. The AD's probably gone. Ward Manuel, the things I've read, I just read today where the investigation is going to pursue into the entire athletic department for Michigan, and I think that's just a sign that they're probably going to get a new AD and let that guy get a coach and kind of start clean slate. And usually that happens anyways when it's this bad. The AD usually goes as well. So especially because this is not the only thing that's happened. They've had, I can't even remember how many NCAA infractions they've had since Harbaugh was on board, which is AD who hired him. I believe it was a Wardy Manuel. So that's all going to be done probably, and we'll hopefully get that on the back burner and get it moving forward. But it'll be interesting to see who they get. But I think it should be a really good coach that's won very well at lower levels, somewhat of a nobody. We don't need a splash. You don't need, all that. Just get a guy in there that says, get the camera on my face and watch what I do on the field. And that's what Signetti did. Google me. I'm tired of talking about myself. Google me. I win, So.
He's a bit much for me, man. He's a great coach, but geez, the way he comes across, to me, he comes across so arrogant. That's his thing. So whatever. But going back to this whole coaching thing, like you were talking about getting somebody in there to do this and that. And of course, I always go back to Alabama, being an Alabama fan and everything. And I look at the downfall of Alabama with last year. Losing the last 2 games, getting knocked out of playoffs. People probably said that they would get in and then lose to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
This year, another loss to Oklahoma. The way they played at LSU, and then Georgia. A mess, a hot mess. But I guess what I'm getting at, the big difference in these coaches, you got to be willing to pull the plug. You got to be willing to make a change. When things ain't working, you don't just keep going with the same guy. If it's a baseball game and a guy gives up 10 straight hits, you don't leave him in there.
Right.
So, to me, this whole football thing, hey, man, he's struggling. It's not that you got to replace him for now on or anything else, but, get him out there, change it up a little bit, give another guy a chance. Like I said, you're not necessarily taking his job away from him.
Yep.
At that point, maybe it's better for us to go a different direction. And, DeBoer has not done that the last 2 years, and I think, golden opportunities to do that. He's got, it ain't like they got nobody's behind him, 5-star guys. No, they're not yet or anything, but, neither was Sayan or Ty Simpson for that matter. So,
right.
Sometimes you got to be able to pull that plug in. And Saban did it in the championship game.
Oh yeah, literally what I was going to say is Saban did it, and he did it in championship game, and he did it a couple years in a row with the same people. Pulled out Hurts, put in Tua, and then ended up putting Hurts back in the next year for Tua when you need it. And sometimes the guy's got to sit the bench to see the perspective of it, to get his head on straight. Steve Young had that happen to him in San Francisco, but he sat him on the bench. He was piping hot, but he just wasn't seeing what he was doing, and then he just kind of woke up and went back in. And I think that year they won one Super Bowl. But yeah, sometimes, like you said, it's just for a game or the rest of the game. Get him out, and, just hopefully he sees all the stuff he's doing wrong. So absolutely.
Yeah, coaching like I was just, I was saying, coaching makes a difference. Not only that, if a guy gets a personal foul, if a guy's upset, been out of shape, you don't leave him in the game. Pull him out, get him over to the sideline.
Right.
Hold his place for a couple plays, let him calm down, talk to him, have your coaches talk, whatever you got to do. You don't leave him in the game. Because his head's not in the game, obviously, or he wouldn't have just got that personal foul. Or,
right.
So I just have geez, man, that dog is going nuts. Coaching makes a big difference. So I think when a Michigan, whenever a Penn State, an LSU, when they're looking for a guy, you got just looking for a guy that. One, he's got to be a good recruiter, obviously, because of the times we're in. Recruiting is a big thing. But he also has to be able to manage the game. That was one of the problems with Ohio State when Ryan Day was calling the offensive plays. And there's other coaches, that are calling the offensive plays. I just think that takes away from what they really need to be looking at. A head coach has got to look at he's got to look at the defense. He's got to look at the offense.
Yep.
And he has coaches to do the offensive line, the defensive backs, the quarterbacks coach and all this kind of stuff. I think the last thing that one of those coaches needs to be doing is calling the offensive play. So, if I'm looking for a guy, I'm probably looking maybe a little bit different than what most people are thinking.
Yeah. Speaking of coaches and all that, since we've done our last show, it was, man, Penn State's the odd man out. They're the last team. They're the first team to get rid of one. They're the last team to get one. Who they going to get? Ain't nobody left. Nothing, nothing, nothing. And then biff, bam, boom, Matt Campbell comes from Iowa State, who I think is a solid coach, a ton of experience. It's kind of moving up from the Big 12 to the Big 10, and he should do good out there. And I think he's got roots in Pennsylvania, if I don't believe it. So now all of a sudden, Michigan's the team that doesn't have a coach. Out of nowhere, that happens, and Penn State's set. So what a change of the dime there on the last ones to get somebody. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who they get. But I think Penn State did very well. You know, people are like, well, that wasn't their first choice, it wasn't their last choice. It doesn't matter what choice it was. You just got to get a good guy in there that wants to come. And Matt Campbell wouldn't have went if he didn't want to go because he's passed up other jobs before. So I think they hired a good guy there at Happy Valley. They're happy.
Yeah, I think that there's maybe one or two teams that I feel like maybe didn't make a good. I think Penn State made a good decision. I think LSU made a good decision. I think Auburn made a good decision. With the coaches that they brought in there, I think they had good hires there.
Yeah, I agree.
And those are top tier programs.
And Florida got things Summerall from Tulane, I think, or the JMU hire, the Tulane hire, the Tulsa hire, all those coaches moving up, I think were good picks.
I think the only one that really came into question for me that was Ole Miss.
I think, honestly, I don't know much about the guy, but that seemed like let's hurry up and nail somebody in so we don't lose recruits. So everything's staying the same. He's leaving and everybody else is staying, so to speak. That was their thinking. And, had they not had that, the CFP and all that, they might have not named that guy the interim one thing, but head coach right off the bat. That was interesting. Now, he could turn out to be an excellent coach. Who knows? But that was interesting. But I think it was they wanted to keep guys there in the locker room, and most of them I think should be. They all want to win the championship, and they're in it, and they should do fine. They got their offensive coordinator there calling the plays and all that. So, but that was kind of interesting. Nailing that guy down pretty quick.
It'd be interesting. So, next week coming up, we got what we got as far as who made the playoffs and all that. So, definitely some interesting games. And I'm sure, we talk about it every week. I'm sure there'll be some surprises.
I
didn't see that coming, but
it'd be hard to imagine if any of the home games, the hosting teams lose. That'd be a shocker because none of them did last year, and it seems to be somewhat, especially with the two of the teams being, the Power 6 conferences or whatever you want to call them, the somewhat lower down. If either one of those win, wow. I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible. Anything's possible. You just never know. But that'd be huge news whatsoever if one of those two teams knock off a team in that first round that aren't hosting, especially from the lower conferences. And then obviously if Alabama can upset Oklahoma or Miami, beat A&M. So those would be the upsets for sure if any of them happen.
Those should be very. They should be very close. I look for those games to come right down to the very end. Gosh, hopefully it don't come down to a guy having to kick a field goal. That'd be a freaking nightmare.
I'm interested in the James Madison playing in Autzen Stadium. That's a crazy place to play. And I think it's a night game. That could get ugly. You never know. But other than that, I think Miami can play with A&M at noon in Kyle Field for sure. So, and then obviously we know what Alabama and Oklahoma can do. We've seen it, and I don't have any reason to believe that it shouldn't be again another weird close game.
Two really good defenses.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and people have all kinds of theories. Heck, I got my own theories. People think I'm as crazy as anybody. But, talk to them, and they said, well, these games are fixed. Look at that Ohio State game. He said, there's no way that guy could miss that field goal. And I'm like, maybe you should watch Alabama for a season.
Yeah.
Then you could see how he could miss that field goal because our guy missed from the 2-yard line.
Right. Oh yeah.
What is that? 12 and back up 20-yard field goal. I mean,
Yep.
what happens? You know.
If you're an inch or a half in the wrong direction where the foot the ball is, you're missing a field goal. I mean, it's not a whole lot of room for missing there where your foot is, and that guy's missed him before, but he's made him before. But the whole team was just in shock. I think nothing was going the way it could or should have gone in their minds, and I think that just was another part of it. When you look at that whole game, Ohio State still had a good chance to win it. It was only a 13-10 ball game. It was a heck of a fight. Indiana had a lot of great plays. Ohio State had a better second half than first half, but they could not get the ball in the end zone except the one time, and they, of course, missed one field goal, and the other time didn't try for it, got stopped on downs. It's just one of those games. It happens. Sometimes you just everything you do shoot stuff right in the foot.
Well, my other issue is with that. The guy missed a field goal. It's on him. Heck, we've even had situations where they got death threats and everything else. But
Yeah.
whoever that fan base is, they always leave out the fact that the other team missed 2 field goals.
Yeah.
Yeah, you came down and you lost, and in the last minute, seconds, whatever. But their team missed 2 field goals, and that guy missed another field goal. Nobody looks at the whole picture most of the time, and the stuff, and some of that drives me nuts. But yeah, anyways, I just happened to think of us talking about that. I'm like, are you kidding me, man? We got a guy that makes like 40% of his field goal.
Right.
I don't know if they're short or long.
Yeah, I was telling my boss at work
Yeah.
after the Michigan game, I said, I had to remind myself that the season wasn't over because it just felt like we won a national championship because beat Michigan, even though you don't think it means that much. 4 games in a row, you don't want to be 5. So I wonder if a lot of them players just really as much as you can get up for a game, and I'm sure they were up for it. It's a little bit different from the edge of coming in from a loss and stuff. So, it was one game. If you're going to only win one, if you see them twice, you want to lose the first one. You don't want to lose the second one because the second one is in the playoffs. So, there's no. I don't think there's anything rigged about it. I think those guys wanted to win the Big Ten as much as anybody else would have. I don't think they were taking a day off because it's not a meaningful game. It's a meaningful game. And hats off to Mendoza. They're going to crown him the Heisman guy here probably in an hour. He's definitely earned it. He had a great season. He's fortunate for him, he transferred out of Cal and into Indiana, and they've lit it up. I feel bad that their one defensive end looks like he's done for the year, and he got hurt celebrating. I don't know if you saw that in the Big Ten championship game. He was celebrating and he blew his Achilles. So that's a bummer. It's a bummer way to go.
You're talking about that Heisman thing. I think I wouldn't be upset for any of these guys won that Heisman. I mean, I think they all have the the stats. I think they all have the.
I personally would have given it to Jeremiah Love, and I'm not. It's not throwing shade on another Big Ten team. I don't think Julian Sand was good enough to win it yet. And it has nothing to do with that. He's a redshirt freshman, first-year starter. He did have a heck of a season, but I think there's a lot of things there that could have been better. I do think Mendoza had a better season than him, even before they played each other. But I think Jeremiah Love, was pretty awesome.
Well, I think that Pablo Diago, or whatever that is.
Diego Pavia, yeah.
He was brilliant. I mean, he was awesome as anybody.
Yeah.
So.
But you know what? It could have been a good year for a defensive player to win. I think Caleb Downs is the best player on Ohio State's team. And he's that meaningful, but it's on defense. They don't really look at defensive players that way. Even though he is number 9, they had Ohio State had 3 guys in the Heisman voting, the top 10, I should say. Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs, as well as Julian Sand. Yeah. But they were saying if Julian Sand wins a Heisman, this is a couple weeks ago, he's not even the best player on his team. And it's true. I mean, the best player Julian Sand isn't the best player on the team. He's probably not even the 5th best player on the team because they got so many great players. But I think Caleb Downs is a stud. He's generational from a college player. I don't know if he's going to be in the pros. Who knows? Could be great. Could be great. But he's generational in college. His mind, his place where he was on defense. He's a roamer, tackler, defender. He was great. He's like the quarterback of the defense.
Oh, there's a defensive back at LSU that's pretty darn good. Also, I mean, just he's the best player in his team. I mean, by far. And whenever they gave out the award for the best defensive back or whatever, all the SEC people.
He won that, didn't he? LSU guy?
What's
Didn't
that?
he win that? Didn't the LSU guy win that award? The DB award?
Yeah, I think he did.
Yeah, I think he did. I think I heard that.
They're saying one of the other was robbed. Whoever won it, they said the other one got robbed. And I'm trying to think.
I wish they wouldn't have the Heisman be best player. They got all these Blitnikoffs and all the awards for positions. Leave it at that. Don't have a Heisman best player because that's just, again, that's like having a committee to pick all. It's just too subjective. And as good as a quarterback is, most of them, not all, but most of them aren't going to go down there and take on a 300-pound lineman. So it's just too. The positions are too crazy, So, but no, yeah.
The
go ahead.
Ohio State Indiana game. I know you watched it, so I'm sitting there watching it. He had a quarterback. He had a decent game. It wasn't phenomenal. It ain't like he went out there and lit it up. He had
right.
I mean, nothing spectacular, but the media and the announcers. They got a first down at the end of the game. He completed a 30-yard pass. Give him the Heisman.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Well,
I know.
The first down, we're going to give him the Heisman? Okay.
They said the same thing when he threw that pass. The same guy threw the pass in Penn State, and that guy caught that crazy ball in the end zone and tiptoed.
Oh, he got a feet down?
Yeah, so give him the Heisman. Who?
Yeah.
The receiver that made the incredible catch? Because he just threw it under the goalpost. So, I mean, dude, and that's a whole other conversation, how they just sensationalize like crazy every call, no matter what it's for. I can't stand it.
Well, like you said, the defensive back award, linebacker award,
right?
Offensive lineman, they have all those awards, for those. They have play of the year. That play you're talking about where that guy came down the end zone. I mean, certainly would be the.
Yeah, absolutely.
Play of the year. I mean, so they have awards for all that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think you necessarily win a Heisman for doing one thing, two things, or whatever. But yeah, it's.
I mean, apples and oranges, so to speak. When Joe Burrow won the Heisman, it was obvious that he on the field was a difference maker. If you put somebody else out there, Joe Burrow.
Oh yeah.
You put somebody else out there. Is that going to make the throws? He was throwing. Now, granted, he had weapons, but he was throwing balls that were going right over guys' heads that they weren't even looking for the ball. The defender. I mean, he was throwing plays. I remember going, "Why did he throw there?" That way he was covered. I mean, it was a lot. You look at it, you go, "That guy earned the Heisman." He just really did. I don't feel like I saw anybody just flat out earn the Heisman like that this year. But I guess I got to give it to somebody.
Well, yeah, I agree. But we'll say this about Burrow. Burrow has some pretty good wide receivers.
He did. There's no doubt. No doubt.
Right now today we're looking at probably possibly the three best receivers in the NFL were on that team.
Yeah.
So I mean, he had some. Heck, I would throw it to him. Throw it up. Go get it.
Yeah. And he did.
He had an incredible year.
He did. There's no doubt about it. That was nuts. That team was pretty good. Pretty good. That game against LSU was incredible. I remember that. Didn't they play Texas earlier in the year? Well, they were LSU. I'm saying they played Texas earlier in the season. And that was a crazy game. Yeah.
So another thing that'll be interesting at Michigan is their quarterback has like a $12 million NIL deal or something crazy like that. Is a guy like that going to look at his options? I mean, his college football truly came to a thing where it's that big of a money thing where a guy making $10-12 million can actually shop around.
Well, here's a funny thing.
He could make that in his first couple of years in the NFL.
Kelly was the one that originally had him going to LSU, and then he flipped to Michigan, Brian Kelly. So I saw on a podcast where, and I can't confirm this myself, and I don't go digging around that, and I don't have the time to do that, that Underwood, the quarterback that paid $10 million. Now, the $10 million would have been over for 4 years. Obviously, he didn't give him $10 million up front, but they gave him 1 year of that. He has pulled everything associated with Michigan off all his social medias. And so I don't know if that's true or not, but if it's true, that could be that he's now shopping a new deal. But who knows? And I can see him doing it, and I can see him not doing it, not because of who he is. That's just the culture we live in. Some of these players, the guy's from the Michigan, so you could say, oh, he's always wanted to go to Michigan. Maybe not. Maybe he just wants to go where the money is. Who knows? So it's possible. It's very possible.
I think he had to follow the money a little bit. Whenever you went to Michigan for that kind of money. But,
Yeah.
One of the interesting things was, I don't know if you heard this or not, but when the AD for Notre Dame came out and spoke, he put out a statement and stuff, taking questions and stuff. People, oh, what about Marcus Freeman, Michigan, all this kind of stuff. And I don't know if you caught what he said about this, but he said, listen, we don't have a problem renegotiating with Marcus Freeman every year to keep him here.
Huh.
It's like, whoa.
I didn't hear that at all. That's interesting, though.
We don't have no problem renegotiating with him every year to keep him.
Good for Marcus. Good for him.
I mean, think about the how the money thing comes in.
Yeah. Marcus' agent just went, nice. That's good to know. Wow. I wish my boss said that about me. Of course, they want to renegotiate the other direction.
Yeah, probably not. Maybe negotiate how much money would give somebody else to take you.
Well, reminds me when I was a DJ in Michigan, I had a second job at a place where there's a little restaurant, and I was a cook making food. And the guy comes back here, he goes, "Hey, we got a problem." I'm like, "What's that?" He goes, because whenever you eat something, you just write it down. They take it out of your check. He goes, "You don't make enough money to pay for the food you're eating." I'm like, well, what are you trying to say? You trying to renegotiate my contract? All right.
So yeah.
So we got games. We got games next weekend. You want to talk about them next week before the games, or you just want to talk about it after? It's just the 4 hosting games.
We should probably kind of get on like Wednesday or Thursday talk about those games coming up. I mean, we talked about some of them, but not specifically.
Okay.
All of them. We can talk about those games and then come back and have a recap for.
Oh yeah.
We've seen and coming into the next week, because then you're going to have your 4 bye teams coming in and all that. So yeah, I mean. We talked a little bit about Oklahoma and Alabama, but the other ones we didn't talk about that much, so we can hit on all that stuff. And
let's do it then. Sounds good to me.
All right.
So we'll be on sometime probably mid to mid late next week. First games are Friday night, and then the rest are Saturday. So we'll do it probably Wednesday or Thursday, and we'll set it up, and you guys will be all ready to watch round number 2 of the 12-team playoff. The last year was the first one. So don't forget to hit us up on Facebook, give us a like, and on thumbs up. That's it. That's what it is, and then whatever it is on there. And then hit the bells and subscribe on YouTube so you can stay close to us as we're here sitting inside the college football corner. And until then, I hope you enjoyed Army-Navy, and we will see you guys here in a few days.